Dr. Damani Phillips.
Yes, ma'am.
Our chair of jazz studies here at the University of Iowa. You have released a second book.
Yes.
You're in the process of releasing a second book.
Yes. Well, I mean, I guess we would call this a book, in the literal sense. I think this is one of the arguments we're having, is whether or not this should be something that's considered to be scholarly work for us here at the university, or just something that's kind of an add-on extra. I'm arguing for the former, but
I hope you are successful.
So I hope.
It is definitely looks like a book from the outside, but you describe this as a listening book.
Yeah. That's the best descriptor that I can come up with for it. Yeah. And it was very much intended to be a replacement for the ritual of us having a physical product in our hand as we listened. As I grew up, those are some of my favorite memories of me sitting there with once upon a time, a cassette.
Yes.
And then after that, a CD, but having that physical product in my hand as I listen to the music, and you can get an inside perspective on what's going on with the music, that experience was really transformative, and a big part of, even to this day, what I look for when listening carefully and intently to things. And with the advent of streaming,
yes,
obviously that's kind of gone the way of the dodo, and that's not something that's customarily done. But I think some things are lost as we make that transition. I know it's convenient to have music piped into your phone, but there are some things that get lost in the wash, so to speak, as we make that change away from physical product into something that's purely digital.
So included in this book, you have sort of an overview of every item, every track that you describe. So there's a musical track that sort of forms a chapter.
Right.
And then you have the score. And then you have an interview with Brandon Alexander Williams, who is a Grant Wood Fellow here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the two of you talking about the track. Sometimes it sort of heads toward a topic related to the track.
Yeah, well,
but kind of getting into it,
right,
and then
right.
you can link out to a media file of the track itself.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things included. It's a very also kind of surround sound experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of built on the notion of all the things that I would love to have had about from the artists that I love.
Yeah.
Of course, I want to know the story behind the album that the song originally appeared on. I would love to see the actual score of what's going on in the music.
Yeah.
I would, of course, love to have the music itself. But more importantly, it's those gems of old interviews that we find from Cannonball or Coltrane talking about topics in their own words, as opposed to us taking a scholarly approach and trying to surmise what they intended or what they meant, actually getting to hear it from their own mouth and their own words in their own language, as casual or as formal as they want it to be, where you actually kind of get to know the artist in a way that you can't do if you just deal with a physical kind of product or medium. And so we kind of put together a list of all the things that we'd love to have about every song that we heard. And since we were designing it, we kind of just decided to put as much of that in there as humanly possible.
And so you were collaborating with Brandon on this project.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you said, Brandon was our Grant Wood Fellow here in hip-hop performance several years back. The first one that we had here, anything of hip-hop orientation in this building.
It was very cool.
Yeah, very, very proud moment. And he and I stayed in touch over the years after he finished his fellowship. And he contacted me with this idea. So this is really kind of his brainchild. And I know he has some books that are similar in construction for his poetry. But he contacted me and said, I've got this great idea. I'd like to use you as a bit of a guinea pig. And so we sat down. He gave me the idea, and we brainstormed in terms of what it should all should be included.
Yes.
And then we came up with this, final product. But this is entirely his idea. Absolute genius. And I think he realizes too that us trying to insist on digital, media is got its limitations. Yeah. It's convenient, and yes, it's fast, and it fits, a young lifestyle. But at the same time, some things are lost in translation in that. And so this was a way of kind of having our cake and eating it too. Still, digital medium, because we aren't going to be able to fight that. that is what it is. And people are going to consume music through their electronic devices from now to the end of time.
Yes.
It's just the way it's going to be. But at the same time, still provide the other side of it that I think helps make the experience of enjoying people's musical work that much more of an immersive thing.
It's interesting. I've actually we were talking about this in the workroom, people's use of liner notes. That when we have students coming in to check out CDs, almost always they're very eager to look at the liner notes because that type of information is not as readily available as it used to be. You might learn about an artist that doesn't have some sort of presence online.
Yeah.
You'll learn about how the album was conceived, what the idea was. But this is so much more than just liner notes. It's far more full-bodied than that.
Well, that was the hope. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like I say, we wanted to give as much information as possible. And by using this format, that's one of the beautiful parts of it. You can put pretty much as much information in there as you want. And it's not taxing on the medium.
No.
You know what I mean? You can put 150 pages in there if you really want to. So we took full advantage of that. You know what I mean? And like I say, without overwhelming the listener with, stuff just for the sake of having stuff. But at the same time, if you get to experience my listening book, you should know me pretty well by the time it's all said and done with. And that's my humble opinion on things in terms of how, the book should be, if it's done well, received by the public.
You definitely share, pieces of your history, things, experiences from your playing and your education, and you share philosophy of how you approach what you do.
Absolutely.
Brandon's a really good interviewer.
Yeah. It definitely stays casual, but he kind of, teases things out of you that, you might not say if it was a formal interview.
Yes.
As opposed to it just being two folks, having a conversation. And that was really the point too, the casualness of it all.
The conversational tone is really lovely. I actually quite enjoyed because there's one spot where he's not somebody who reads music on the regular. Obviously, you've been reading music for a very long time, and you sort of have that conversation about, so here in the scores there's this, and kind of how did you make this decision to do this, not that.
Yeah.
And so I think it really does open up your audience.
Absolutely. And that was kind of the part of the concept too. In my mind, I saw people who, were father or parent and child sitting next to each other, and the parent has musical training and the child doesn't. And them having a conversation about, this is what happens and this is what a chord looks like. Those conversations where they get to know the craft of music, not just the music that's inside the book. That making listening an experience as best humanly possible, and not for a specific kind of demographic or specific constituency, but for everyone. And trying to put something in there that pretty much everybody can relate to. If you know nothing about music, then dive into the interviews. If you're a music buff, then dive into the scores. You know what I mean? For my string charts, I put literally the entire score there so you can see exactly how I wrote those tunes, the voicings, the way things moved, all that stuff. If you are just a music buff, then scan the QR code and go check out the track, and that's all that you're after. But, something for everybody, and with the hope that not only will people be able to enjoy the music, but also share the experience of listening to the music. That's, I think, the best way that I can describe it. So that's really an experience that we collectively have, as opposed to me with my device in my hand through my Spotify or whatever account. Us, let's get together and listen to this. And so bringing that community, that communal spirit back to the process of listening, like it was when I was young. We would all get together and have listening sessions, you know what I mean? And talk, and you know what I mean, and rap back and forth. Hoping, that we can at the very least rekindle that, or at minimum, demonstrate the value of that.
So for this publication, you were really in charge because it's your publication. You made it all happen from ground up.
Yeah, Brandon gave the idea, and then we definitely riffed back and forth about what to put in the book. And I made an argument for all the things that we put in there. And so in that regard, we kind of collaborated on it.
Okay.
I don't think, because he wasn't a musician, you know what I mean? He didn't really think to himself, well, what would be ideal for this book? He was thinking about it from one angle, and I from somebody who's been listening to music all my whole life and playing it. I came at it from a different perspective. And so we came together and settled on this particular format by the time the whole process was done.
And you've done a book that is interviews. What is this thing called? Soul.
Yeah.
And that was done with a publisher. What did you enjoy about the experience of really being able to, other than just being able to make all the decisions yourself, what was it about your listening book that was different to you in a way that you're very happy you went that route?
It's in the beginning, it's an idea and it's kind of theoretical, you
Yes.
know what I mean? And, it may possibly work out that A, B, and C, but as it came together, I was like, oh, it's then that it starts to really come to reality. And you start to, the process of seeing people enjoy it starts to get closer and closer to fruition. That was the thing that warmed my heart because I knew that we had a winner. You know what I mean? And when the physical product, the draft copy of it landed in my hand, I was like, oh my goodness, we've got a monster on our hands. And it is literally taken off. I was, new mediums, you're always a little bit worried, but folks have taken to this like fish to water. Some people like to just put it on their table, make it a conversation piece.
Yeah.
Some people like to, use it in the way that it's supposed to be used, right next to people listening. But regardless of what your kind of your focus is or what you feel is important, the book can provide it. And that is, at least in my estimation, in order for us to get away from the purely digital approach, we've got to offer something that is alluring and attractive and, convenient to use, but not, cumbersome to the point where it's, a pain in the backside to actually access the music that way. So there's a lot of smart thinking that has to go into what you use if you want to legitimately bring this back.
Yes.
And like I say, Brandon's idea was literally genius. And I thought it was until I got it in my hands and I was like, yeah, this is something that has the ability to really change the game. And it seems that, at least from public reception so far, that it definitely has the ability to be a legitimate presence in how we offer music to the public.
Will you pester Curtis and William to give it a whirl?
Well, I presented this to the entire jazz program, so they know exactly what happened with the book and how it was conceived from top to bottom. So I'm hoping that they may, at some point, consider it too. And as the book's success builds, and I share that with them, I hope that they'll see that it's got more appeal than it may appear to on the surface. And and thinking a little bit bigger, now that we have it presented in this book format, you can get this into bookstores.
Yes.
And you can get it into libraries.
Yes.
Where it's not with the other CDs way back in the back of the library somewhere that you have to have a call number and then go.
Well, and I can't buy a digital recording.
Yeah.
By single title and distribute it via a library, but we can have this in the shop.
That is the hope. And I'm thinking also about students. You know what I mean? Like here we have our DMA recording project.
Yes.
And, part of that's a paper, part of that's a recording. This is the perfect medium for that. So there's lots of applications for it that are beyond offering albums.
Yes.
And but I think folks are so locked into the way of thinking about how we consume music customarily now that they aren't even really considering the other possibilities beyond just the literal way that you think that something like this will be used.
The title, Red and Blue Notes, which I had to look at a couple times. Oh, that's clever. So it's READ and BLEW Notes. My father would approve. He's a big fan of the pun.
Well, you know where that came from, right?
I do not. That's what I wanted to ask.
Of course you know where it came from. The wordsmith himself.
It came from Brandon.
It most certainly did.
He is so clever.
Yeah. He snuck that one in on me, too. He didn't tell me about it. I just looked at I was like, oh.
And now you're in.
But what are you going to say about that? You know what I mean? Am I going to tell him no? Of course not.
No.
It's so slick. You know what I mean? It's so very, very slick. But yeah, he didn't even tell me about it. He just snuck that in real quiet.
Well played.
Yeah. Brandon, boy, I tell you, sharp guy, sharp beyond words.
Last thing I will ask is if somebody wanted to get their hands on a copy, how would they go about doing that? And you also mentioned that it's available in a couple different formats.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the first one. So my thing was, if we're going to use this as a possible replacement for how we offer music to the public, then the price point needs to be something that's at least commensurate with what we would pay if we were to purchase a CD.
Sure.
And so there are 3 different versions of it. There's a black and white copy, black and white from top to bottom, a color copy. Both of those are softbound.
Okay.
And then the last step is the hardbound copy, which is a little nicer, and for people who want something that's a little more substantive. And the price point for the black and white copy is right at the same price you pay for a CD from somebody. So I can take these to shows and I can offer them a download card where they go and they download some MP3 files from a server and have it on their phone, or I can offer them this.
Yes.
And most folks, it's the craziest thing. Once they have it in their hands, it's like, oh, it's the same as me. You get it in concept until you get it in your hands. And you're like, oh my goodness. And so, the black and white one, I think is $20, 20, 25, and 30. So they're, made to be completely reasonable, commensurate with what it would cost to buy an album anyhow. And it's really easy to get these. You can get them directly from me, but we also want to make sure that it was a convenient option for people to get access to without having to track me down.
Yes.
So it's just go to Amazon.
Okay.
And if you type in Damani Phillips Red and Blue Notes, they'll pop right up. You can order it. They'll print it up for you, send it off to you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
No, thank you.
I've really enjoyed the time I've spent with it.
Nice.
And it's one of those things I love seeing when faculty get creative with their projects, and this is really something special.
Thanks.
So I hope you find the success that you richly deserve with this project.
Well, I'm hoping so, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Oberman Center, which in the beginning of this process, because it doesn't fit the normal mold of a book in the traditional academic sense. It's not something that the university readily supported as we were trying to get the project
through the
off
normal
the ground.
channels.
The normal channels, right? Like if I'm recording an album, obviously the university supports that. But for this, it was looked at, it's just a self-publication, so we don't support that. But I think they may have missed the boat on what it potentially offers too. And so the Oberman Center was one of the few places on campus that actually believed in this concept and supported it to allow me to at least put the prototype together so that once we can get that in the hands.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? And like I said, once that happened, the whole trajectory of things changed completely. So I am truly thankful for them for that support, because it was definitely instrumental in helping to make this come to fruition.
That's wonderful. Excellent. Well, I hope you have a wonderful holiday.
Same to you, huh? Don't work through it like
I won't. You better not either.
That's sage advice. Probably won't follow it. But sage advice.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.